Good morning. Welcome to the Commission's administrative meeting for June 8th, 2022. Before we get started today, I'm happy to make a few personnel announcements that we have. First of all, I'd like to announce the promotion of Kim Schock. Kim was in the transportation office most recently at the front desk there. She's served in a number of administrative roles at this commission over the past few years, and I'm happy to announce she is now supporting both our Deputy Executive Secretary, Mr. Collins, as well as the Executive Secretary as a management associate in their office. So congratulations to Kim. Additionally, in our electricity division, we have a new regulatory economist, that is Eric Delgado. Eric, are you here today? There you go. Okay. Nice to meet you, Eric. Welcome to the commission. He graduated from the University of Maryland, College Park in 2021 with a degree in economics. And he most recently was working for Cambium Assessment as a statistical analyst. So welcome, Eric, to the 17th floor. And finally, somebody who's not here today, but Christine Ugwa, she joined the Office of the Executive Director earlier this month as an administrative officer. Her responsibility will be to manage the solar renewable energy credit applications process that we have here. And in addition to leading that process, she will provide research, analysis, and project support to technical staff. She's a native of Miami, Florida, and only recently moved to the Baltimore region. She has a bachelor's degree from the Florida International University, where she majored in international relations and minored in economics. And she also received a master's degree from Florida International as well. So Christine, welcome to the team as well. Those are our personnel announcements. As a utility regulator, one of 5 on this panel, I know we all have our different philosophies with respect to utility regulation, and my 3 core guiding principles are reliability, sustainability, and affordability of the services to our utility customers. I think we are at a very concerning point in this nation's history with respect to the supply of our energies in this country. And I'm looking at a number of documents. Most recently, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission published its summer assessment, and the outlook doesn't look terribly good for many parts of this country, including the Midwest, Texas, and the West Coast, where 3 grid operators are predicting the potential for blackouts this year. Obviously, there's a move towards more decarbonization, which is a goal we should strive for. But at the same time, with FERC predicting that some wholesale market electricity prices at particular hubs will increase by upwards of 230%, those commodity costs will ultimately be borne by retail rate customers. So whether you're paying for kWh for an electron or a therm for your natural gas, or even a gallon of gasoline, there is going to be some additional pain for utility customers, both in Maryland and across the country. And it's something that we as retail regulators need to be mindful of. We have little to no control over the commodity rate, which for many customers is the bulk of their utility bill. We do set the rates for the distribution component, and I'm aware that we currently have 2 rate cases, both for electric and gas supply, that are before us. This is a sobering reminder that costs will continue to increase, I believe, at least in the near term, and it will upset the economics of both the industry and the pocketbooks of our customers. Just this morning, I was taking a look at our retail supply offerings on the state's website, mdenergychoice.com. We have several hundred electric and gas suppliers operating in this state right now, but I was concerned not to see a single one. I may be wrong, and if I'm wrong, and I wish somebody would let me know, but it's hard for retail suppliers to turn a profit in this rising cost environment, and I was not able to find any supply offerings for a fixed term contract that could meet or beat the SOS offering. And that's an issue that we'll have to discuss with retail suppliers, how they compete in the competitive environment that we've created if they are struggling to compete on cost. So these are some issues that weigh heavy, but number one, by far and above of those three principles that I adhere to: reliability, keeping the lights on, particularly during this summer where the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration are predicting above average temperatures in the Mid-Atlantic region this summer. It's something that we as a commission, as a utility community, need to keep very close attention on. So those were just some opening, sobering comments based on that summer assessment. So, yes, Commissioner O'Donnell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't disagree with anything you've said, of course, but I want to add some additional sobering comments. And that is to say that if the corporate tax increase that's been bandied about occurs, those who set rates in this space know that's a direct pass-through to all customers. Low income, moderate income, medium income, everybody's going to pay that tax when it gets passed through. So people are struggling. We got rough economic waters ahead. And if the economy does go into a recession or worse, which is possible, because as we know, we try to be incremental in our changes and not be drastic in our changes, because we know how that perturbates and roils the markets and the waters. We could be in for some dire straits, and I don't want to sound too pessimistic, but incremental change is better than drastic change. And this transition, well, this is just a transition. Well, it's more than just a transition. The economic lifeblood of this nation is at stake, Mr. Chairman. We may have to deal with it at the local level. So I just wanted to add that, because what is happening out there in terms of policy is very scary to me. I wanted to share that with those who may be watching and listening to us and know what we're thinking and contemplating and dealing with. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Bubar.
Thank you. And I really appreciate the comments for both of my colleagues. And I just have to say it's been rather sobering to me just over the past 3 weeks after coming to the commission. Reading, you can't not read anything every day about these issues. And it's just like understanding that we actually are dealing with these issues and we have to deal with them. And as you say, Commissioner O'Donnell, at the local level, I think these decisions are extremely important. So I'm still trying to get my head wrapped around what exactly can the PSC do to affect these issues. And I'm not sure I have an answer to that just yet. So I look forward to actually being able to get some clarity on that. But I just have to say, I just feel like it's just been amazing to me, the timing of being able to be on this commission and knowing that these are really important issues for us to struggle with because it affects everybody.
Not sure if it's the right time or the wrong time to join the commission, but we appreciate that you're on the bench with us. Commissioner Linton, did you have comments?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those indeed are sobering comments, and of course, they're the reality and the truth of the circumstances we face now. But I guess from my perspective, the biggest and most difficult part oftentimes of solving a challenge is first being able to identify it. And I think we're at a point where we know that rough waters are ahead, but we are, in some cases, still at port. So we have an opportunity to load up and be ready for it, and to start, as we're doing this morning, to prepare people for the challenges that are coming. But also to let them know that we got the best here, and we are able to address it, work on it, and hopefully find some solutions that will not necessarily solve every problem, but will get us through. So there are lots of challenges ahead. That's kind of what I'm looking forward to facing.
Thank you, Commissioner. With that, we have meeting minutes to approve from our last meeting of June 1st, 2022. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting minutes are approved. Good morning, Mr. Secretary.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. We have 3 items on the consent agenda this morning. Items 1 and 2 are filings from Bio Energy Solutions LLC. Their applications for a license to supply natural gas or natural gas supplier services and a license to supply electric or electricity supplier services in Maryland. And then finally, item 3 is Train Energy Choice LLC filed a request to cancel its electric supplier license.
Thank you. I believe we have questions for items numbers 1 and 2. If council could approach the respective podiums. Good morning, Mr. Chang. We'll begin with questions from Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chang, set the table for me. This filing came in quite a while ago. Why was it hung up for so long? What was going on with this filing?
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Michael Jang on behalf of staff. So as I believe this filing was, the company filed these on February 9th of this year. The application itself was fairly straightforward. This is a broker application. However, what concerns that and what we were reviewing internally and then later discussing with the company was our concern was with the affiliates of the company and how this company is basically the same company as, or has the same management, shares the same management as Spark Energy, which has had some possible issues in the past. Additionally, they're also affiliated with Major, which has also come before the commission with some possible issues. So what staff had to deliberate and decide on was how did we want to approach this application. Initially, our comments were to actually deny the application based on the complaints, the affiliates, and what the company provided. When staff reached out to the company regarding our recommendation, they then later filed some additional comments, which then staff had to go over to decide whether or not it was appropriate to approve, which is why it may have taken a bit longer than typical.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. I appreciate that. And the company made a significant change in their application in May. Is that correct?
Yes,
And what was that change?
it decided to remove its services to residential customers.
So they decided not to serve residential customers, thinking that would bolster the recommendation from the staff that was coming, and that seemed to satisfy staff. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Green, good morning.
Morning, Commissioner. Morning, Mr. Chairman. Good to be back in person again. Good to see everyone. Here on behalf of VA Energy Solutions, with me today in the hearing room is Barbara Clay, who is the General Counsel and Vice President of the company, along with Kenya Joseph, who is the Senior Director of Regulatory Affairs. We did file the application. VIA filed the application on February 9th. We've done our best to work with staff. Initially, when the application was filed, Commissioner, they had checked all the boxes, I think, except for Chop Tank, including all the residential, commercial, and industrial boxes. The company never had an intent to serve residential. They just had overchecked boxes. So when the issues did come up with the service to residential customers, we filed, I believe in May, a letter amending or supplementing the application to remove the residential box. But this is a broker application to serve CNI customers, which is what VIA is doing around the footprint that it wants to serve in, and is seeking licenses from various jurisdictions.
Why do you think staff, Mr. Green, had concerns about this company and its potential license serving residential customers?
So I think staff was right to have concerns. This is a company, VIA, it's now VIA Energy's, VIA Renewables is the parent company. There is a lot of complaints and a lot of proceedings. In fact, attached to VIA's broker application was about 10 pages identifying 28 investigations, most of which, all but 2 of which now have been closed or dismissed. And what we tried to explain in discovery that we served, which attached to the staff buck sheet, is if anything, we identified everything that they could, that was at the whole shebang, and really should have provided a narrative to explain the details of some of those proceedings. For example, a lot of these proceedings were actions of entities that Spark had acquired. So the actions were pre-Spark. Spark's now in cleanup mode. In late 2019 and 20, Spark brought in a brand new management team, Ms. Clay being one of them, and Ms. Joseph. And their mandate was to clean this up. All the prior actions, all the investigations, put in new processes and procedures for their marketing channels, put in new contract paper, and new vendors and so forth. And they are working through all that, and just so happened to coincide with COVID. So they're still working on that. Spark currently is not marketing in Maryland. They ceased marketing a few years ago. Major is, but again, under an entirely revamped system as far as the electronic platform they use, the paper they use, the vendor they use, everything's brand new. So this is a different company from what is described in the application, but we had to describe all that in the application in order to fully disclose all of the prior activities. So that is what I think gave staff concern. And I think hopefully in being able to work through some of these issues in the discovery that we responded to and the email exchanges, we were able to work together with staff to get to where staff could recommend approval of the applications.
And I've read those discoveries, those data requests, and I have a pretty good understanding, I think, of what's going on here. But the 28 investigations resulted in $14.3 million worth of sanctions and other requirements beyond monetary sanctions from states ranging from New York to Pennsylvania to Illinois to Maryland, other states. Is that not true?
I have not done the math, but I saw the math in staff's buck sheet. I have no reason to doubt it.
All right. So does Spark have a pending application before this commission?
Yes, sir. So it's been about a year, but Spark filed, they have a license now. They had filed an application to amend that license to include service, I think residential in the Pepco service territory.
I thought it was all service territories. The buck sheet I read was all service territories. They want service residential.
No, I think it's just Pepco, Your Honor.
Staff, are you familiar with that filing that's currently on the potential agenda for next week?
I believe the original filing was for all service territories, but I can definitely confirm that.
I'm pretty sure it is.
But they're,
So-
I hope it's only for Pepco.
So understand that it appears to this commissioner that these instant filings sacrificed residential because an affiliate is coming in and has been pending for a long time, but coming in to ask for residential service. Why should I be comforted by that?
This is not a marketing company. This is a broker company, and they're not going to be serving to residential at all. So all of the problems that you saw with Spark or with Major or with other entities involve service, I would think mostly door to door to residential customers.
Understood, but it looks like you sacrificed residential in these instant filings because you know Spark's coming in for residential. You're a close affiliate,
No, it's just,
to be honest.
I appreciate that may be how it looks, but that's not from our side. It was just someone filed the application, checked the residential boxes, but there was never an intent to broker to residential customers by VIA Energy Solutions.
Well, if anything does come from me, Mr. Green, is that these companies have brought you on as counsel because that gives me some sense that they're taking seriously the compliance issues with regard to how state regulators like us view bad actors in this space. If anything happens out of these proceedings, if these are approved today in their consent agenda, but the sacrifice of the residential service doesn't comfort me and doesn't satisfy me. But if these are approved today, I hope this company makes very, very certain that they are squeaky clean with regard to consumer protections in this state. And I want to send that message loud and clear and unambiguous, because we're not going to tolerate it. And neither should the other suppliers in this space, including RISA.
And that is well taken and understood, and I will carry that message back to all of my clients. I can assure you with respect to Spark, and it is on the agenda for next week, whether it will stay there or get deferred, I don't know. But we have been working with staff also and provided them with a new contract summary that would be used going forward. And we want to continue those discussions with staff as well. If they have other questions about the electronic platform that will be used, or the marketing channels or anything like that, we're happy to have further discussions with staff about Spark.
And this commission sanctioned in 2016 Spark for $300,000, which at the time it wasn't in the league of the kind of sanctions we're handing out now for bad actors in the space. And it was we have a much more stern approach to bad actors in the space. And that filing for Spark has been pending since 2020, I believe. It's been quite a while. And I think we had it before us. I think we deferred it. I think Spark never came back as requested, or for whatever reason, it never came before us again.
No, I think it's just been continually deferred. I don't think that there's been an appearance by Spark on that issue. At Spark, a major was here when they acquired Sterion Energy's book last October. A lot of these same types of questions came up. It was a virtual appearance. Ms. Clay was answering some of your questions, and maybe that's what you're thinking about. But Spark was filed about a year or so ago and has been deferred several times.
Perhaps. Well, the essence is clear. I want to send the message loud and clear. Don't come before us again with problems. Don't do it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Green. You are counsel for Spark Energy as well?
Yes, sir.
Were you counsel on March 31st of last year when Spark appeared before the commission? Miss, I believe it was Muriel Leclerc, was responding to questions of the commission.
I was not.
No.
I think I was brought in, maybe that's what I believe I was brought in shortly after that. After that happened, I was brought in at the thing.
I just received confirmation to Commissioner O'Donnell's request that the Spark application requests privilege to do business in all of the service territories. Okay. If you could refresh my memory, if your client knows, who was Miss Leclerc, or who is Miss Leclerc?
Yeah.
Good morning. If you could just state your name first.
Hi, I'm Barbara Clay.
And Barbara, you could pull that down a little. Just pull it right down. It'll. Okay.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
We won't break it. Yes, we do.
I'm height challenged, sorry. Muriel is on our regulatory team. She's a regulatory specialist who assists in filings and regular course maintenance of our licenses and answering questions.
And who does she work for?
She reports directly to Kenya, and Kenya reports to me. So,
And I'm sorry, what is your title?
I'm the general counsel
For what company?
for Spark Energy.
Okay. So everybody is with Spark. Okay, thank you. I'll return to council. So council, you were retained, your services were retained after our administrative meeting on March 31st. You state that the matter has been postponed until next week, and I'll ask the secretary in a moment if we could give you some certainty that it will be on next week's schedule here. Mr. Keith Maxwell, does he have a controlling ownership share in all of these companies?
Yes.
What is his title or position? It was in the filing.
He is the CEO and chairman of the board, and he was, as we explained in the filing, he was the one when he who in late 2019, 2020, brought in an entirely new management team to reshape the company.
Have those efforts begun to pay off? I recognize this because I asked this question because I noted that we at the Maryland Commission had a number of complaints with respect to Spark in, well, 2019 was not a good year for the company. So when did his reforms begin to take effect?
The new team, I believe, came into full throttle in first quarter of 2020. I believe that's when the filings were made here at the commission. And that happened to coincide with COVID when the world shut down. But they were dealing with that as well as putting new reforms in place in the various jurisdictions and dealing with the open investigations that were, like I said, primarily the result of entities that had been acquired and actions that occurred prior to Spark's ownership, like Hyco Energy and Major Energy in the teens that Spark had acquired in, I think, 2016 and 18. And I hope that answers your question.
Since the first quarter of 2020, how many complaints has Spark received before this commission? 2020, 2021, and 2022 to date.
Right. So by our count, in 2020, Spark had 9, and in 2021, Spark had 2. So 11 total, and none in 2022. Major had, I'm not aware of 2020. In 2021, they had 8, and in 2022 year to date, there have been 4. And I'm happy to talk about this if you have questions.
As you probably are aware, neither Spark or Major have tripped the public reporting screen on our website with these, well, 0 to date with Spark and 4 to date with Major. Can you give us a sense of the flavor, or particularly Major, over the past, since 2021? It's a total of 12 complaints. The nature of those complaints.
Sure. So let me just, in 2021, there were 8. 6 of them involved one product that Major Energy was selling, and this is described in our discovery responses. The bottom line is that there seemed to be some confusion from customers as to what the product was, and I would say that of the 6, the Consumer Affairs Division, one of them ruled in the company's favor. But nonetheless, the company went back and has revised the marketing materials and the contracting documents to put certain things in bold, to move certain things up to the top of the contract and so forth, to make it more visible and so that hopefully customers understand it better. I don't think they are currently marketing that product. That's 6 of the 8 in 2021. One of them involved a customer who was having problems getting energy assistance. So they filed a complaint against Major, which that's clearly not a supplier's domain, right? And then the last one in 2021 was a wife filed a complaint at CAD when the husband had enrolled the account and the husband was the account holder. So I don't know if CAD issued a closing letter, but it was the company's position that the account holder went through the process, knew what he was doing, and signed up the company. And then we moved to 2022, and there were 4 complaints year to date. 2 of them involved customers that were former Sterion Energy customers whose fixed rate had defaulted to a variable pursuant to the contract, and they didn't know they were now Major Energy customers, even though they had received the assignment letter and Major had done everything it was supposed to do. The customers just didn't see it. So again, that wasn't any kind of misrepresentation or consumer protection issue. More or less, it was the customer just not understanding that their accounts had been transferred.
Those seem to be more sort of just transactional confusion with a new name. Although our regulations require that the complainant attempt to work out the situation with the supplier before a complaint is even ever filed. How did those 4 get past customer service at Major to the point where the customers actually filed with us when they could have just had an explanation. Oh, we changed it, the name. That's why you're seeing Major now. You used to be a customer of predecessor company.
Yeah, I don't know the answer with the, under the contract, there's a dispute resolution provision. The customer is supposed to call and go, have that back and forth informally and try to work it out. I don't know if that happened in these instances.
Well, from our end, we require that the customer affirm that they attempted to work it out with the customer. We won't pursue a complaint unless we know that the customer attempted to resolve either with the supplier, the utility, or the taxi cab company. These are opportunities, really important opportunities for the company to make things right with the customer. Of course, if the company thinks that they're in the right, they obviously have the option to explain that during the complaint resolution process. Mr. Maxwell, he's also the CEO of Major. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Does he control any other retail suppliers that do supply companies that do business in the state of Maryland?
Not that we're aware of, only the renewable entities.
Okay, thank you. I've asked a lot of questions. I'll turn to my colleagues if they have any. Commissioner Bubar.
Thank you. A lot of my questions were answered already, but so it was noted that Mr. Maxwell replaced multiple people, the CFO, the COO, of course, general counsel. And so can anybody just shed any or provide any information on what information or expectations were provided of all of those people in those senior positions to make sure that the culture of, kind of working to remain in compliance is an expectation for all of those people in those senior positions, not just the general counsel and the compliance officer?
Sure. Let me have Ms. Clay answer that question. I think that's more suitable.
Thank you.
Hi, I can give you my firsthand experience. I was called in late 2019 to interview for a turnaround situation, clean up. And that's what interested me because I have no interest in anything but a very compliant company. And then I staffed my team, Kenya, who's in my opinion, one of the best regulatory persons in the industry, and we just then got to work on making sure we set up new compliance oversight, a lot of reporting, eyes on everything. Similarly, every other executive was restaffed in that way. I can also tell you that any advice we've ever given, there's never been anything but execution on it. Never pushback, never a problem. So I think he's very serious, and I hope you can just see from even the numbers, things have been going in the right direction.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dodd.
Ms. Clay, can I do a follow-up? I apologize. Bring you back up, but
Never a problem.
so I have no reason to doubt your veracity. I'm not doing that, but there's a concerning history here, as you appreciate, I'm sure. Tell me that the $14.3 million worth of sanctions, assuming subject to check that figure is correct, is not in the mind's eye of the company the cost of doing business in this space, because if it is, then I have a big problem.
I can tell you is absolutely not the mentality that's costing doing business at all. And I mean, quite frankly, he's a controlling shareholder and it's real money out of his pocket. And it's upsetting to him. He has a very good reputation in his community. He does a lot of philanthropy. So it's mortifying to him. And that's why he brought in just top-notch people to turn this around. So it's not the cost of doing business at all.
Well, I'm surprised it took $14.3 million over many years to get to that realization.
I do think one of the issues is that they had acquired some companies that had kind of looming problems, and they surfaced and they sort of, opened up the bag and had other people's problems, but in no way am I trying to minimize this whatsoever. Just give it a little bit of context.
Thank you for that.
Ms. Clay, or Mr. Green, what's the corporate relationship between Via Energy and Via Renewables?
So Via Renewables is the holding company that is publicly traded. And then Via Energy Solutions, that is going for the broker's license, is a subsidiary in that line.
So it's a parent-sub relationship.
Thank you, yeah.
Okay. All right. And where are you based at?
The company's based in Houston.
Okay. And you flew from Houston yesterday?
No, I actually live in Connecticut and I go to Houston once a month at least. And I drove yesterday from Connecticut.
Okay. Thank you for the drive down. Relatively
Oh,
short. Commissioner Richard, I'm sorry.
Most of the questions have been thoroughly asked at this point, but I am, Ms. Clay, interested in knowing a little bit about what the services you will be providing, your company will be providing. So today we're talking about Via Energy Solutions, is that correct?
That is right.
That's the focus as a brokerage. So, and you'll be doing, providing these services for commercial. What kind of companies are you going to be reaching out to? And can you just give me a little flavor for what services will you be promoting in the state of Maryland?
Sure. So it is for commercial, and your basic commercial company would go to our broker and say, you know, I'm looking for the most economic or efficient or maybe green is very important. And our brokers would work with many other retail energy providers and try to get them to match what makes sense for them, whether it's term, whether it's green, whether it's index special product, and that's it is very separate and different from our retail energy business. It's a diversification. It's we've hired specific people and sort of caged them in a different area of the building to make sure there's confidentiality and sort of independence on that.
Okay, so they do operate separately from an affiliate like Spark.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
I mean, there's definitely oversight from our COO and some oversight from compliance, but they are a separate business.
Okay, and as far as the types of commercial businesses, are you talking about sort of like mom and pop store?
I think I'm not that
Or are you
familiar.
going to large industrial?
I don't think it's large industrial. I think it's mid-size.
Okay. Like a supermarket chain or that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate
Thank you.
having a better understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me ask staff, and then I'll ask the executive secretary if staff's unable. Mr. Jang, are we on track as currently advertised to have the smart energy item on next week's agenda? Spark?
No, we are not. So staff is currently discussing the materials that Spark has provided staff with CAD and CEU to review them, the contracts, everything that they provided.
Okay, so you need more time is,
Yes, it's likely that we will reach out to Spark to discuss and have a call.
okay, all right, that's all I needed to hear. We'll be prepared to call a vote on this item today. And again, thank you for coming down to the commission on short notice. As Commissioner O'Donnell had noted, with or without Mr. Maxwell's sort of control and influence on this company, and I recognize he's been attempting to make some changes over the past 2 years and a few months. I do have some concerns. I have questions when I see the same corporate office for all these subsidiaries. It's not an uncommon practice for various industries, but at the same time, when you have a corporate history, as you fully disclosed, that has a checkered past, it does leave a bit of a stench behind. We recognize that Spark has had a relatively checkered past, a checkered recent past with this commission. Our compliance and enforcement unit is working overtime to catch any bad actors, parties that engage in deceptive marketing practices. whether it be door-to-door, telesales, which has our litigation and attorneys tied up in knots in court right now because we have so many of these cases we're attempting to prosecute. This commission will continue to keep an eye on track records, report cards, complaints that are filed. I appreciate your honesty with the commission today and disclosing some of this. I will, Mr. Green, take your word that it was a mistake from the get-go to sign the residential customers up. But at the same time, this commission won't hesitate to open an investigation to either assess penalties or revoke a supplier license, a broker license, in order to clean up this market. It's been 20 years and we're still waiting to see the fruits of the supply market. And Mr. Green, you heard me say this morning that I fear for the future of the retail supply market, particularly in this environment now where some of your clients, some of the retail supply industry, they have to resort to giveaways or other benefits or the environmental consciousness of a customer to pay a premium for a product when most people just want the cheapest energy commodity. With that, I will. My commissioners don't have any other questions. I will make a motion on these items with respect to item number 1 by Energy Solutions LLC that we grant the company a license to operate as a natural gas supplier in Maryland, limited to broker services for the customer classes and service territories applied for and recommended by staff. Direct the company to provide marketing materials specific to its Maryland operations to the commission staff 30 days prior to utilization of the materials in Maryland, and direct the company to file notice with the commission within 30 days of any changes to the information in the application. The related item is number 2 by Energy Solutions. I move that we grant the company a license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland, limited to broker services for the customer classes and service territories applied for and recommended by staff. Direct the company to provide marketing materials specific to its Maryland operations to the commission staff 30 days prior to utilization of the materials in Maryland, and direct the company to file notice with the commission within 30 days of any changes to the information in the application. I'll call a separate vote on item number 3, but for the 2 VIA energy items, the vote begins with Commissioner Bubar,
Aye.
Commissioner Linton,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to vote no, and then I'd like to explain my vote. I'm going to vote no just to register my grave concerns with the history of this company, these companies, and to put a notice that should we get Spark back before us, that I'm going to have some more questions, and they're going to be tough questions. We'll wait till staff, if and when they bring that back before this commission. But I just want to, I appreciate the presentations of the company today, and Mr. Green, as counsel, done a good job in a bad situation, but I'm going to register no vote just to put on record that those concerns. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Richard.
And I'm going to vote aye, and I wanted to just say that I was largely influenced by the presence of the company today, their forthcomingness, and just the fact that I think they were very candid in their responses today. So I do vote aye. Thank you.
I vote aye by a vote of 4 to 1. The motion is approved. With respect to item number 3, I move that we approve the cancellation request. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar,
Aye.
Commissioner Linton,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
and Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved. Mr. Secretary, the administrative meeting.
Mr. Chairman, first item on the administrative agenda is item number 4. It's Delmarva Power and Light Company filed tariff provisions to its supplier coordination tariff to implement seamless moves with an effective date of July 1.
Good morning, Chairman and
Morning,
Commissioners.
staff of council for Delmarva can approach. Mrs. Sproul.
Morning, Chairman and Commissioners. It was staff's original understanding that items 4 and 5 were to be read together.
We have a substitute in the box today. We'll call on item number 5 as well.
I can do that, Mr. Chairman. Item 5 is Potomac Electric Power Company also filed tariff revisions in its supplier coordination tariff. Moves as well.
Thank you. Mr. Sproul, will both you and Mr. Hoffik be making the presentation or just you?
Mr. Hoppick will be making the oral comment, but I will be representing it here for questions on behalf of staff as well.
Thank you. Well, we'll turn it over to Mr. Hoppick. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. I do have one correction to begin with, and it's on staff's PEPCO comments. So it's on the 11th page of the comments in Appendix A. So it's the last page of Appendix A. So it's under Section E, withdraw or cancellation of 814 move transaction. Currently, the third main bullet reads, the customer does not activate the new account or to satisfy utility account requirements for new location. This should read, the customer does not activate the new account or fails to satisfy utility account requirements for new location. So the missing word is fails between or and to.
Thank you, Mr. Hoppick, for clearing that up. Okay, you may proceed.
Yep. So good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. David Hoppick on behalf of staff. On February 15th, 2022, the Potomac Electric Power Company, or PEPCO, and the Delmarva Power and Light Company, or Delmarva, filed updated supplier coordination tariff pages with new tariff language in order to implement seamless moves for retail electric customers as required by the legislature. Working with PEPCO and Delmarva, staff has proposed and the companies have agreed to select changes to their initial tariff filings. These proposed changes are presented in Appendix A in both sets of staff comments. The PC 44 Competitive Markets and Customer Choice Working Group submitted a report and a reference consensus business plan to implement seamless moves. The proposed tariff language, as revised by staff, is generally consistent with the reference consensus business plan. Through communication with the companies, it came to staff's attention that PEPCO and Delmarva will be freezing customers' accounts upon initiation of a seamless move request made by a customer. This means that after the customer's supplier is notified of a seamless move through an 814 move transaction, which is an electronic communication, other suppliers will not be able to enroll the customer until the move is completed, which can be up to 30 days prior to the date of the move. It is staff's understanding that PEPCO and Delmarva's method of implementing seamless moves with customer accounts frozen to new enrollments was discussed and approved in the Competitive Markets and Customer Choice Working Group. PEPCO and Delmarva filed a letter requesting a waiver of Code of Maryland Regulation, or COMAR, sections 20.53.04.02 A and B, which requires that a retail electric supplier be able to enroll a customer and the utility be able to process that enrollment within 3 days. Specifically, PEPCO and Delmarva are requesting a waiver of the requirement to enroll a customer with another supplier within 3 days of receiving an enrollment transaction from the time the customer's existing supplier is sent an 814 move transaction until the customer's move is completed and the existing retail supplier is transferred to the customer's new address. Staff supports PEPCO and Delmarva's waiver request and recommends that the Commission grant the request as filed. Staff has reviewed the PEPCO and Delmarva tariff filings and processes and recommends that the Commission accept the proposed tariffs as revised by staff and require PEPCO and Delmarva to file clean copies of their respective tariffs. Staff also recommends that the Commission grant PEPCO and Delmarva's requested waiver of COMAR 20.53.04.02 A and B. Staff is available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hoppick, counsel for PHI.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I have nothing to add. I'd just like to thank Mr. Hoppick and Mr. Sproul for working with us on this, and Mr. Chin for his leadership of the work group.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. So you concur with all of staff's recommendations?
Yes, we worked cooperatively with staff, and we agree with the edited tariff sheets that are attached to both box sheets.
Thank you. Do commissioners have questions? Seeing none, with, I'll have a global motion here. I move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing by Delmarva Power and Light Company as revised by staff in its comments dated May 27, 2022, and accept the revised tariff revisions for filing by Potomac Electric Power Company as revised by staff in its comments dated June 1st, 2022. Direct both companies to file clean copies of the revised tariff pages with an effective date of July 1st, 2022, and grant both companies request for a waiver of Comark Title 20, Subtitle 53, Chapter 4, Regulations 2A and B. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell. Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, item number 6 is Baltimore Gas and Electric Company also filed proposed tariff revisions supplement 488 to PSC G9. The company proposes updated discount rates for purchase of receivables.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commission. Zach Peterman on behalf of staff. On May 2nd, 2022, BGE filed a tariff revision to update its annual recalculation of the company's purchase of receivables for POR rates. For the upcoming period, BGE proposes to keep the discount rate at 0% for the general service class. Residential service class, the company proposes to have a discount rate of 0.2238%, which is an increase from the 0% rate last period. The component primarily responsible for this increased rate is a larger amount of uncollectible expenses. Staff will again compare the year-over-year changes in the POR components of the company's 2023 POR filing to determine if the 2022 positive POR rate is an anomaly or if a change in forecasting would be appropriate. Staff recommends that the Commission accept the revised tariff for filing effective June 1st, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Peterman. We tend to haze the newer employees with all the POR filings, so thank you for a very detailed box sheet. Ms. Albert, you as well. Counsel for BGE.
Yes, good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Brent Bollea on behalf of BGE. I'm happy to be here and answer any questions and want to thank staff for their analysis and recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Bollea.
We get started. Just on the cover page in the description of application, it states that that Pepco had filed an application for authority to issue $1.2 billion in debt, but that should be $1.4 billion. So May 6th, 2022, the Potomac Electric Power Company requested authorization to issue up to $1.4 billion debt securities. The company indicates that the proceeds from the sale of any debt be used to refinance existing debt, fund ongoing capital requirements, and for general corporate purposes relate to Pepco's utility business. Under Public Utility Article 6101A2 and 6102B, a public service company that operates in Maryland may not, without prior commission authorization, issue debt that is payable wholly or partly for the 12 months after the assumption, guarantee, or issuance of any of those items. The information in the application and in Pepco's response to questions posed by staff regarding the anticipated use of the funds that would be raised by the proposed debt issuance indicates that this debt issuance satisfies the standards in Comark and the Public Utility Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland. Furthermore, on June 3rd, 2022, Pepco provided proof that it had
complied with Comar 2007-0402B by providing staff with the notices of its debt application published in local newspapers. Staff recommends that the commission grant the application and issue a final order in compliance with Comar 2007-0402C, authorizing PEPCO to issue up to $1.4 billion of debt securities. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. McAuliffe. Counsel for PEPCO.
Good morning again. Doug Mikeel on behalf of Pepco. I have nothing to add.
Thank you. Do commissioners have questions? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Mr. Mikeel, you heard our kind of upfront discussions regarding the rough waters ahead of us in this utility space and economically, generally. And we're in a time of rising interest rates. For the foreseeable future, the Fed is going to be raising interest rates. Explain to me how this $1.4 billion in long-term debt authorization may impact future rates of PEPCO.
Well, it could increase those rates depending on what the percentage of the bond is. I believe it's 3.6%. Is that correct, Mr. Shetty? So the bond issuance will be at 3.6%. And so if the overall rate is higher than what our overall rate is, it could increase rates. It could lower rates too if we're retiring some bonds that were issued at a higher rate. And I'm just not sure. I have Mr. Shetty here. Perhaps you can provide more information about where our bonds are currently at and what we would be replacing.
Yes, the current Tom Shetty with PEPCO. Currently, you're right, Chairman and Commissioners, the interest rate is rising. Our current embedded cost of debt is around 4.7% roughly. So the new issuance, all else being equal, is higher than 4.7, then the overall cost of debt would go up. The new issuance coming up, with part of this 1.4 billion, we issue, say, 200 million next year at 5%, then the cost of our overall cost of debt would go up. On the contrary, if we issue 200 million or whatever that number is at lower than 4.7%, the overall cost of debt would come down. It depends on when we are going to issue at what rate. But the benchmark or is all else being equal is around roughly 4.7%.
I suppose there's no good time to do this, and we understand the companies need to issue debt, of course, and we acknowledge that all the time in our rate setting. I'm concerned, and I've expressed a concern to the chairman and to others that nickels and dimes make dollars, dollars make people get nervous, and this time of great uncertainty with regard to inflation, rising interest rates, commodity increases, and other uncertainties in the world. $1.4 billion gives me at least some pause to ask at least some question about it. So.
Yes. I would just like to highlight, we have already pre-issued around 225 million, and that is at the prior rate, the old rate, which was roughly 3.37%. Because we issued before the interest rate climbed. So, that will be issued in September, but the rates have firmed up on that. That's 225 million at 3.37%. If we had to issue today, it would be roughly in the mid 4% range, 4.5. So that decision by us has helped to save costs, roughly around $2 million per year.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Bogart.
First of all, I want to say our family is still a dinosaur because we get the paper hard copy. And I noticed the notice of this was in the Washington Post. And I said, oh, I guess the Public Service Commission is going to have to make a decision on this. So I was pleased to see that this was in front of us. But I just have a couple questions. So in the filing noted that there is an existing debt of 400 million that comes due on March of 2024. And that was at 3.6%, but you expect that might be refinanced, but 3.6 seems like a fairly low interest rate. So I didn't quite understand why I guess you would refinance it because it comes due in 2024, but I just wanted to better understand that.
Yes, Yeah, yes, Your Honor, Chair, Commissioner, it will be refinanced. That is, the plan is to refinance that in 2024 when it comes due. Because, we do not have the existing cash sitting there to pay off that completely. So we'll have to refinance. But keep in mind, 1 year is too far away in this market. Not 6 months ago, the interest rate was much lower. So hopefully it'll prove, the rates will be comparable. But if it goes up, certainly we'll have to refinance at a higher rate.
Okay. Is there any limit on the amounts for tax exempt bonds versus loans when you decide which debt instrument you're looking at?
Ours is all of ours is, the tax exempt is a completely, we only have one tax exempt bond, which is for a specific purpose, but all our bonds are taxable bonds. It is no different. The only thing we will decide is based on the market demand. What is the market demanding, whether it's a 10-year or a 30-year, and our existing bond issuance. So we don't want to crowd all the bonds in one maturity. In other words, if we issue just 10 years of bonds, then what will happen is all of them are concentrated at one particular time. And if that time is the one when the interest rates are higher, we will put ourselves at a higher risk. So we want to spread it out to different maturity cycles, sectors, some in 10 years, some in 15 years. So all across the platform.
Thank you. No further questions.
I would move that with respect to item number 7, that we authorize Pepco to issue up to $1.4 billion of long-term debt and direct Pepco to file reports as required by Comar 20.7.4.2C3. The vote begins with Commissioner Blumer.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, last item on the agenda is item number 8. It's Maryland Water Service, Inc. filed revised tariff pages related to the billing frequency for customers of the province's water system.
Mr. Federer.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. On May 12th, 2022, Maryland Water Service filed a tariff revision to set up the billing frequency of their province's water system to be quarterly rather than monthly. Case number 9671, the Commission approved a settlement which included tariff language that all customers of Maryland Water Service would be billed monthly. To bill the customers on its province's system, the company receives meter data from Anne Arundel County. County currently only provides this data on a quarterly basis and cannot currently provide the data on a monthly basis to satisfy the language in the settlement. For the company to conduct its own meter readings, additional staff would have to be hired, which is currently not feasible. The company agrees to monitor the situation to find a solution that allows the province's system to be billed monthly, including a meeting with county representatives in the next 60 days to assess any potential solutions. Staff recommends that the Commission accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of June 11th, 2022, and direct the company to notify all impacted customers of the change in bill frequency no later than June 18th, 2022.
Thank you. Counsel for Maryland Water Service.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, David Beaglemans on behalf of Maryland Water Service, Inc. Nothing to add to staff's presentation of Bucksheet, but I'm here to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on this item? Commissioner Blumer.
I just have one question. I think I know the answer to this, but I didn't see it in writing. So does Maryland Water Service read the meters for all the other service areas?
It does, Your Honor. The province's system is unique in that the meter is actually read by the county because the county provides sewer service, and that's the historic relationship between the two. So they read the meter, provide the data to the company.
Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question for the staff. This was a settlement in case 9671 where this agreement was reached. Were there any other parties to that settlement aside from the staff and the company?
So People's Counsel was a party, and it appears they did not file anything. I should say that the testimony behind the settlement, not only in support of the settlement, but earlier on, always contemplated the change from quarterly to monthly. So now staff was surprised, but I suspect the company was also surprised that they would have to revert to quarterly billings.
So I'm not opposed to the idea of doing this at least on a temporary basis to see if we can find a different solution. But I guess I'm curious what the staff and even the company's thoughts are on whether or not at this point the commission can go back and change the settlement, especially since all the parties aren't aren't here to say that it's okay. Is that modifying it temporarily? Is it OPC's here? Okay, good.
I can attempt to answer that, Your Honor. I mean, the way that, and Mr. Offler may want to chime in too, but the way I view it is the settlement expressed the positions of the parties. The settlement was approved by the commission. The company filed tariffs that reflected the settlement. This issue obviously is arising from the terms of the settlement that was approved, but we're modifying an existing tariff. So I don't view it necessarily as modifying the actual agreement itself. I can also tell you that as soon as the company discovered this issue, we immediately set up a call with staff and OPC to make sure the parties were comfortable. I know OPC, or excuse me, staff supports this change, and OPC did not raise any objections. Maybe Mr. Cleaver.
Yes, thanks. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Joseph Cleaver on behalf of the Office of People's Counsel. Yeah, Mr. Bugelmans is correct. The company immediately notified us. Ms. Wiggins, who is our lead counsel in this case, participated in the call. And we then reviewed the company's filing and made a determination that our office did not oppose the filing. We thought that the reasons for the change were in good faith, and we trusted the company's representations. We would also note that we were thinking of it more along the lines of the way that Mr. Bugelmans framed it as a tariff change, as opposed to some sort of modification of the settlement that would require something further beyond what the company filed. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. The companies are all comfortable with it. And we're looking at this as a transition to what the settlement was attempting to achieve in the first place. My understanding is that the customers are being billed on a quarterly basis prior to the settlement. So from their perspective, at least as of right now, nothing has changed.
That's correct, Your Honor. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to get this in as soon as we could. The way that the final order was timed, if this is approved today, there wouldn't be any disruption in terms of quarterly billing cycles for customers. Obviously, the rates would change as a result of the case, but there wouldn't be any disruption or confusion with when the bills are actually tendered to customers.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Continuing my line of tough questioning this morning, Mr. Cleaver, could you approach, please? Good morning, Mr. Cleaver. Good morning. So my very tough question is, do you have anybody you want to introduce to us today?
Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. I do. With me today is Juliana Bell, who will be taking over one of the deputy positions at the Office of People's Counsel after I depart, and Friday is my last day in the office. Ms. Bell comes to OPC. She's been at OPC since February. Before that, she was with the Office of the Attorney General as an Assistant Attorney General for, I believe, around 8.5 years. Prior to that, was an associate at Miles and Stockbridge in the bankruptcy practice group. And prior to that, had a career as a journalist, including with the Baltimore Sun most recently. But with that, I would like to introduce Ms. Bell and maybe ask her to come up and say hello to the commission. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. Juliana Bell, it's a privilege to be with you this morning, and I'm sure there will be many privileges to come. As you all know, Mr. Cleaver is a hard act to follow, but I'll do my best to conduct myself in the same honorable way he has. And I appreciate the opportunity to say hello.
Ms. Bell, we have all read your curriculum vitae, and we appreciate you coming to us. We're going to miss Mr. Cleaver as well, but we welcome you and we look forward to your practice representing the residential ratepayers of the state of Maryland and the environmental community as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Any additional questions on this item? Seeing none, I would move that we accept the tariff provisions for filing with an effective date of June 11th, 2022, and direct Maryland Water Services, Inc. to notify all impacted customers of the change in bill frequency by June 18th, 2022. The vote begins with Commissioner Boomer.
Aye.
Commissioner Linden.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard. Aye. I vote aye. The motion is approved with no additional business on today's meeting. This meeting is now adjourned.